All right, welcome to the Double Coverage Football Podcast. This is kind of a new thing we're trying out. I know I'm a big podcast fan. Listen to them quite a bit. I figured Kyle and I exchange messages all the time about different players. Might as well record it and kind of see what other people think. Don't really know much about us, but we both write for NFLDraftGeek.com. Do different scouting reports, kind of focus everything around the NFL draft. So without further ado, Kyle, if you want to introduce yourself or say anything, go ahead.
Really just glad to be doing this, and hopefully it turns out to be a success, and hopefully do this for every team and just have a good time with it during this draft season.
All right. Kind of what we're going to look to do here, just because the draft is getting so close, and there's 32 teams to cover, we're going to go look at the team at the start of the draft, and then a team at the end of the draft. So today it's pretty simple. We're doing the Buccaneers and the Pats, kind of look at them. A couple other topics we're going to cover today. The Randy Gregory situation and his marijuana issues. We're going to talk about some players that we've been watching and doing scouting reports for, or just kind of breaking down. And then I have a couple questions for Kyle that he has no idea what they are. I just kind of want to get his opinion, mainly on players and teams, first round possibilities, kind of stuff like that. So, should be a good show. Let's get started with the Bucs. Just kind of looking at the team overall, they weren't overly active in free agency. The big things that they did was they cut Michael Johnson and Anthony Collins, who were their two big acquisitions. I know I found it a little funny that everyone complained that Michael Johnson wasn't this great pass rusher, but I don't know about you, but when I looked at him in Cincinnati, he wasn't a pass rusher. So why are we now surprised that he's not rushing the passer there? So what's kind of your thoughts on losing those two?
I mean, my thoughts on that, just, Michael Johnson he's an exceptional athlete. I've seen the guy in person. He looks like something that's drawn up in a Marvel comic. Has all the physical tools, but he just is not built to rush the passer. He's a very good run defender, like you mentioned. He had, one good season in Cincinnati where I think he recorded 10 and a half sacks or somewhere up there. But then that was about it. And he's mainly just been a run defender, very good athlete. But the Bucs tried to turn him into something he wasn't, and just obviously a big fail. And, I think Collins was solid and steady, but the amount of money they gave him probably reflects on why they were so cost conscious in free agency this offseason.
And speaking of that, they didn't really add a whole lot of players. I think they're Sterling Moore, cornerback, came over from Dallas, and then they added a couple former Bears that played under Levy, Chris Conte and Henry Melton. I know personally for me, I think everyone in the world hates Chris Conte and thinks he's terrible. I actually think he's pretty good. I just can't stay healthy. He'll play. He'll make plays, but then he'll get hurt and miss the rest of the game. So, any thoughts on those signings?
Well, Conte, I probably fall in the category of the rest of the world. Just every time I watch that guy, he's getting torched. Whether it's by Randall Cobb or Calvin Johnson, the guy just was always on the wrong end of a highlight reel. But as for Melton, he's one of the best interior pass rushers in the league. He's not going to be a guy he's probably not going to play all three downs. Not the greatest against the run, but the Bucs could really use some help with that pass rush, and put him and Gerald McCoy out there on third down, and they're going to get after the quarterback a few times.
All right, yeah, I kind of feel the same way about Melton. He's going to be their sub package pass rusher. They'll probably bring him into the three technique, slide McCoy down, and look to get that penetration. Looking at let's look at the team needs. The needs I have for them are quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, free safety, center, and then inside linebacker. I know I always look at uh, quarterback, left tackle, a pass rusher, and a cornerback are being your top positions, and they have 4 out of those 5 they're lacking at, and maybe that's why they have that first overall pick. What's kind of your your consensus or your thoughts on their team needs?
No, I mean I completely agree. You nailed it. Just I mean they really have holes all over the board. But especially those positions, you talk about quarterback. Obviously, that's a no-brainer with how bad their quarterback play was last year. You know, coming into the season, they're one of the more talented teams in the league, at least on paper. But when you're missing those key positions, you're not going to win many games. So certainly, you want to start with the quarterback.
All right, let's kind of just go through and look at those positions, kind of maybe who we think they could take. Looking at quarterback, I mean, they're going to take that first overall, Winston or Mariota. I tend to think that it's going to be Winston. I mean, Mariota, there are some ties with Helfrich and Dirk Cutter from their days at Arizona State. I just think that Winston is just their pick.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like Winston is the pick for them. You know, I'm not a big Jameis Winston fan. I don't think he's the great quarterback prospect a lot of people are hyping him up to be. And I think his maturity issues run pretty deep, and you know I just can't see him being the leader of a team. But if the Bucs feel confident in him, then you know that's who they got to go with. Marcus Mariota, really don't feel too comfortable with him either. But I mean, from a maturity standpoint, he's there where Jameis isn't.
All right, since I think we both are in agreement that they're going to take Winston and a quarterback regardless, let's go ahead and move on to their next pressing need, left tackle. They're not going to take a left tackle, number one. I don't think there's a tackle worth taking, number one. So we probably think 33 would be their first opportunity. What's your thought process? Is there someone worthwhile there?
You know, I think this year's tackle class it's pretty deep, but it's not top heavy at all. So I think when it comes down to 33, and if they're looking for a left tackle, it's got to be somebody they feel comfortable with. You know, you could look at a guy like T.J. Clemmings. I know a lot of people are high on him. He could be there at 33. It just depends whether the Bucs are confident in him as a left tackle or not.
Yeah, I know. I spend most. I'm the offensive line guy at NFL Draft Geek, so I've broken down and done the scouting reports on all these guys. I like this class, but I don't love this class. There's a lot of quality guys, but there's a lot of question marks. I almost think that Eric Flowers might be the best tackle in this class, and I feel he's just a right tackle only. Maybe eventually down the road, but they need someone to step in immediately at left tackle. My problem that I see is your guys that could do that. Maybe your DJ Humphreys, your Andrus Peets. They're going to go in that late teens, early or even late 20s. Indianapolis needs a right tackle badly. Even Denver could take one. So I think it's going to be hard to take. I think one guy they could look at. Oh, Carolina's in there also. They really need one. Cedric Abui, I think, could be an option.
Okay.
He's got some injury issues, but I think he has left tackle capabilities. If not for him, I think Jake Fisher's a guy that not a lot of people are talking about. I tend to think 33 is high for him. They could take him at their third round pick, but he might not be there.
Yeah, it's from what I understand, Fisher had quite the pro day, and sounds like teams are pretty high on him at this point. Not first round high, but certainly he may be an option at 33 for the Bucs.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the draft nowadays, with it being second and third round on that Saturday, maybe someone does fall out of the first round, and Tampa can trade back and pick up Fisher maybe in the around that 50 range.
Absolutely.
Looking at defensive tackle or defensive end, I apologize. we talked about Michael Johnson earlier. They also lost Adrian Claiborne and Daquan Bowers, I believe, left too, and they kind of leaves them with Larry English and William Golston, and I don't think that's going to strike fear into any offensive line. Who do you think they could look at scheme fit?
To be honest, I haven't gone too in depth with the defensive ends in this year's class. I mean, other than the top guys, but with the recent issue with Randy Gregory, you have to wonder if he's not there at 33. I know it's second round, but chance he could fall there to the first pick of the second round.
Yeah, I think if he falls to them, they're jumping on that as soon as they can. I think they'd want to make that pick on Friday night already. I think Gregory still goes in the first round. He's too good of a talent, I think, and we'll talk more about him later. I think it's hard too because I think you have there's this defensive end class is so good at the top of the draft, and I think it really takes a dive after that. Even a guy like Eli Harrell, I think, is going to go in the top 20 now. I mean, the guys that I came up with could be fits would be Odigizua. I think he could be a good fit. I think they can move him around a little bit. Nate Orchard, Donnell Hunter, and then kind of a later round guy, Lorenzo Malden. I liked him watching him on film. He might be a third round option. Any thoughts on any of those guys?
I watched a little bit of Digizua earlier in the season and really liked what I saw. I'm not sure how he would fit with the Bucs. To me, he reminded me a little bit of Michael Bennett of the Seahawks. But Nate Orchard, certainly a guy that a lot of teams I know have been looking at him as more of a defensive end. I know he played outside linebacker in college, but you have to wonder if he's not a good fit for them too at 33.
And Tampa, I mean, under Lovie, I know they're not a strict Tampa 2 team, but they like those quick guys off the ball. So
Absolutely.
not necessarily the height weight requirements.
Definitely.
Let's look at the free safety. We talked about adding Chris Conte. It looks like Deshaun Golston's going to be moving into that strong safety role. Who are some people that you kind of are thinking there?
At free safety, this year's class is one of the worst I can remember. I don't really see any guy who's going to come in and make an immediate impact or, certainly no defensive rookie of the year candidates. But I understand the kid from Arizona State's been gaining a lot of steam. So he's probably not going to be there, not a second round guy, but he could be an option in the third round for the Bucs.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of the names I wrote down mainly because you think about Lovie Smith, you think about the Bears, they wanted turnovers. And even though Holloman had, 14, 15 picks, some of those were tips, he still got the ball. I think
Right.
I think he would be a good option for them. They have Conte to maybe be that starter that can develop Holloman a little bit better. He's good in coverage. I had him down as maybe an option in the third or even maybe the fourth round. I think his lack of run stopping ability is kind of is going to scare teams off. Speaking of Randall, the Arizona State safety, another guy I liked. I kind of compared him to Holloman. He's not very good against the run. A lot better of a coverage safety. Can match up to corners or wide receivers in the slot. I think he could be an option. I think he's going to go in that third round. So he could be an option there at the top of the third. And then Jaquiski Tart, the guy from Stanford. I was really impressed with him. He was more of a strong safety, I thought, but like a coverage, not your in the box strong safety, but a coverage one. He could match up to tight ends. I felt he could play, the deep half underneath coverage pretty well. Let's kind of just talk about the next two kind of quickly. I had center and inside linebacker. I know last year, one of their big acquisitions was Evan Dietrich Smith at center. He, I think, graded out as one of the worst centers in the NFL last year. So that's kind of a need. And then even inside linebacker, they lost Mason Foster to the Bears. And then they signed Bruce Carter, who you think would be fit in there, but that could be another option that they look at. What are your thoughts on those?
I think center certainly could be a nice option for them. Not so much at 33, but I could definitely see it in the third round for the Bucs. This year's centers class seems to be pretty solid. Actually, I should probably go back and say Cam Irving. He definitely seems like a decent option if you're going to pick a center high in this year's draft. But other than that, you got guys like Grassu from Oregon, Andy Gallick from Boston College. Guys like that could go third round and could be an option for the Bucs there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cam Irving. I think he's. I wouldn't be surprised if he went earlier than a lot of people expected, just because of his versatility and just his overall play. I think if he's there at 33, that almost has to be their pick. And then I had Gallick down too, and then B.J. Finney. I think he's not going to wow you with his measurables or his athletic ability, but he in center these days, you can find a guy that just grinds it out, and I think he could be a guy later in that fifth, sixth round that could pan out. All right, I think we got it pretty much covered with the Bucs. I think we both agree that Winston is their first pick, and then they can go a lot of different places with that round too. If you had your perfect scenario, who do you think they should take in at 33?
Perfect scenario. Is there ever, draft day certainly throws some curveballs at you. Like we discussed, somebody like Randy Gregory with the drug problem could fall. But you're looking at probably a left tackle at that pick. Maybe T.J. Clemmings is probably the a guy like that is probably their ideal pick for them. Get their left tackle and be able to keep Winston upright.
All right. I kind of was thinking Cam Irving. I tend to think he won't be there, but I think if he falls, he could even he's got that experience at left tackle that maybe he could swing out there at the beginning of the year and eventually move back into center. But you might just plug him in right at center. That he's Winston's former college center too, so you got that little connection.
That's a good point.
All right. Speaking of Randy Gregory, let's kind of move towards that topic before we get to the Patriots. I know for me, living here in Lincoln, I've seen Gregory every single game he's played at Nebraska. He's my third overall rated player. When I rank my players, I don't look at any of the off-the-field stuff. I look squarely based on what I see on film. The weight is an issue, but or I don't think it's that big of an issue, but the talent is there. It sounds like he had a pretty heavy addiction to marijuana. He said it was stress related, but he's very upfront. I like that he's got Herm Edwards as his mentor. I think that's really gonna go a long ways for him. With that, what's your takeaway from his situation?
The whole drug test thing and him coming clean to these guys at the combine saying he had an issue, admitting that, saying the last time he smoked was in December. It's great he admitted it, but in the end, to me that's a flat out lie. Saying he smoked last time he smoked was in December. I've worked in the justice system for a little bit with the drug testing, and somebody his size with with as little body fat as he has and working out as much as he is, no way it would take him that long to get out of his system. To me, teams have to wonder, is this going to be an ongoing issue? I know the league's really softened their stance on failed drug tests for marijuana, but even so, couple failed drug tests, and you wonder where this guy's career is going to be headed.
Yeah, I definitely. I think that's gonna be the pause. You got the whole Josh Gordon situation fresh in everyone's mind. So here's a guy that had that issue all throughout college. I think that's gonna scare a few teams off. But as we know, all it takes is one team. Uh, I know Ian Rappaport from NFL Network just reported that Atlanta could be a possibility. I guess Arthur Blank feels that new head coach Dan Quinn has the leadership capabilities to handle guys that have a little bit of off-field issues, and we know that they need a pass rusher badly. Um, I just think Gregory's going to still go in the first round. Too many teams need. He's too good of a talent. You look at Timmy Jernigan last year. He probably would have been a mid first round pick. He fell all the way to the mid second. Gregory is a much better player. I don't think he falls as far as he did.
No, absolutely not. I think I could honestly see a situation where Gregory probably falls to Cincinnati. They've had that history of drafting some questionable players.
They like Big Ten players too.
What's that?
They like Big Ten players too.
Yeah, they do. That they do. So I could see the Bengals taking the risk with him, and they need a pass rusher. As we said, Michael Johnson, they got him back, but he's just a run stopper. I think Randy Gregory could that's probably going to be could end up being his floor.
I think Baltimore's another team. I think they always seem to have that player fall in their lap every year, and I think they've had some off the field issues with Bernard Pierce and Ray Rice. I think this might be this is a little bit different of a situation where they might be willing to take that risk with him just because of the sheer talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go back to looking at the teams. This time we'll talk about the number 32 pick in the draft. The New England Patriots are Super Bowl champions. The big news for them in the offseason was the loss of Darrelle Revis. Revis allowed him to his ability to lock down receivers really allowed Belichick to get creative with his defense. I felt with their different blitzes, they could, along with Brandon Browner on the other side, they lose both of those players. Big loss in my opinion.
Yeah, losing Revis really was kind of that piece that got him to where they needed to be, in my opinion. Brandon Browner, he's a talented guy, but you look at Pro Football Focus, and he certainly was not stellar this year. I think just being able to have a big corner to run with some of the bigger receivers that they come across is just an added bonus for them. But losing Browner isn't a big issue. But certainly, you look at losing a guy like Darrelle Revis and how they go about replacing him. It's going to be a big obstacle for the Patriots this offseason.
Yeah, no, I look at a guy, another that no one's really talking about, and I think it's going to be a big loss for them, is Akeem Ayers. After they traded for him from Tennessee, and then Mayo got hurt, he was a big part of their defense, especially blitzing, playing some defensive end on third downs.
Not to mention Hightower's out for 6 to 7 months now, too.
And they lost Ayers and Casillas, their top two reserves. So I think that's something that's really a big question mark coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And while the Pats did lose Darrelle Revis, I don't think enough positive emphasis has been placed on them retaining McCourty and what he means to that secondary. So you're right. Having this thin linebacking core really could be what sets the Patriots back next season.
So let's go. Let's look at their needs. I had their big needs as defensive tackle, running back, wide receiver, cornerback, and guard. While we're talking about cornerbacks in the secondary, let's look at those. Who are some players you think I tend to think they're going to go back to their zone-based schemes, bracket coverage, like they did before they got Talib and uh, Revis. What do you think?
No, it certainly sounds like that. That's kind of the rumor coming out of Foxborough with them is that they're going to be going back to the zone coverage, and it certainly would make sense. They still have some. They still have some pretty good corners. I don't see them drafting a corner in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Maybe if Marcus Peters falls all the way back, which I think he could. I think they're a team that could that take him. Kevin Johnson's another guy. I don't know if he falls that far back. He's starting to get a lot of traction, but yeah, they did add Chemney Chekwa and Brady Fletcher, who I don't think are gonna. Both those guys could not even make the roster.
Is Fletcher the guy? Fletcher played for the Eagles last year, correct?
Yeah, he was one of the worst starting cornerbacks in the NFL last year.
Yep.
I like PJ Williams. I don't see him as a first round pick. He's that more of a zone cornerback. He's not going to follow this guy around the field, but he's going to play his side. He's can get physical with receivers, jam them at the line. Think he can come forward in the run game. I think he could be an option. Will he be there at the end of round 2? Probably not. But as we know with the Patriots, they're going to move around on draft day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this probably is another year that the Patriots do fall back and let somebody else move up and kind of make a dumb decision.
Yeah. Let's look at another one. Defensive tackle. Vince Wilfork leaves, goes down to Houston. He'd kind of been tailing off. He wasn't the same player this year as he was before. But he was that big inside defensive tackle that could stop the run. They really don't have another guy on the roster that could fill in for him.
No, they really don't. And then you look at last year's first round pick, Dominique Easley, his 2 bionic knees, so to say, and I think he had another injury during the season that cut his season short. Defensive tackle is definitely one of their bigger needs.
Well, and Easley's more of a penetrator and a pass rusher, so he'll probably they'd like for him to take over that one spot, but they could really use that run stuffer. I know I like Eddie Goldman as a possibility at pick 32. Big run stuffer. I think he's got potential to be a good pass rusher. Jordan Phillips is an option. He could be available there. I could really see him getting a lot of traction as we go forward. And then you can look at a guy like Carl Davis. I know they've had some conversations with him, worked him out, or went to his pro day, something along those lines. He could be an option there at the end of round 2.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I definitely like Goldman there in the first. He's very good run stopper, one of the best in this class, and he really does show the potential to become a decent pass rusher. Like you said, Jordan Phillips, he's probably not going to be available. I could see some team in the top, 15, 20 picks taking the risk on him. I think he's loaded with potential, and I have him as my top defensive tackle in this class.
Next need might probably along the offensive line. I know both of their guards were pretty, especially after trading away Logan Mankins. Both their guards were pretty poor last year. I don't see a guard being first round worthy. Could even see not even unless you move like your Lyle Collins or your TJ Clemmings in the guard. I could see not a guard going till the 3rd round. AJ Cann, Laken Tomlinson, L.A. Marpet are guys that I thought could be options in that late second round, maybe mid 3rd round options.
Even Cam Irving, he played tackle, played center. Could see him going as a guard in the 1st round to a team that needs a guard. Maybe the Patriots are that team.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure if one of those tackles do fall, they definitely um, could go that route. Uh, Looking at the laps too, running back and wide receiver, not huge needs. I think every year, you want to say, oh, is this the year they take a wide receiver? They don't tend to do it. I don't know if was it Chad Jackson, um, the Florida wide receiver they took in the first round, who just was a complete bust, scared him off.
Kind of like every receiver they draft.
Yeah. And then running back too, they got Blunt. Um, I'm interested to see how he holds up. He seems like he does good where he comes out of nowhere middle way through or late end of the season, runs well. But then when he gets when he got that starting load at Tampa Bay, he squandered it and wasn't as good. So you got to wonder, are they going to take a running back?
Yeah, and just the Patriots, they, just being able to win with who they have and being able to take these risks. If Todd Gurley falls some way somehow, you have to wonder if New England's not that team to jump on him. Just adding Gurley to that offense would just be almost unfair.
Yeah. And I definitely think they'll probably look at Jonas Gray and Blunt as their power backs. Belichick and the offensive and McDaniels they game plan week to week. So they 1 week they may be ground and pound, and then the next week Brady's throwing 50 times. The loss I saw at running back was losing Vereen. They've always under Belichick had that pass catching running back, whether it's Kevin Falk, Danny Woodhead, and then Shane Vereen. They don't have that guy. I don't think Brandon Bolden is that guy that's going to step into that full-fledged role. I think they got some options. If they really wanted, Amir Abdullah, I think, would fit perfectly in that role. I don't know if he's going to be there at the end of round 2. He could. I don't know if they'll go that early. So a couple of names I think. David Johnson from Northern Illinois, 6'2", 6'3", running back.
He's from Northern Iowa, right?
Northern Iowa, yeah. He's probably the best pass-catching back in this draft. I know I've heard some people say that he could, I saw some ludicrous thing where someone wanted to move him to tight end. He was such a good pass catcher.
I heard that too.
I think Buck Allen from USC, I'm not a huge fan of him. I think I have him as like my 12th running back in this draft, which, I mean, it's a very deep class. I don't really care for him much as a runner, but when he got out in space, and USC used him a lot in the passing game, and he was phenomenal there. So I think he could be that option in that like 5th round area.
Yeah, another guy I like is Duke Johnson. I don't think he gets enough credit as a pass catcher. Running some screens in Miami, he was electrifying, and I could see him being an option. If I could see him sliding, I should say, and being an option for the Patriots in the 3rd round or so.
Yeah, definitely. And then just touching on wide receiver real quick. I think it's a need. I don't know if they necessarily go there. One name to really watch is Devin Smith. I don't know if he'll get that far. I think too many teams like him that he'll be a late 1st round pick. But if he falls to them, we know that Belichick loves to draft Urban Meyer players, and he'd fit that scheme. Give him a punt and kick returner also.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I hear a lot about how people feel the Patriots are looking for a deep threat at wide receiver, but they've had so much success with running the cross-field patterns and really just hitting the underneath routes and just tearing up the middle of the field. I have to wonder if they even go with a deep threat, and I almost wonder if a guy like Devin Funchess isn't going to be their 1st round pick. If they do decide to go wide receiver. Played some tight end at Michigan. I think he runs good routes. He kind of would be kind of the Aaron Hernandez, but with a little bit more of a receiver type of skill set.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think they've kind of gone away from that 2 tight end role. I mean, part of it's they don't have a that second receiver with all that talent, but I think Tim Wright is, and then they added Scott Chandler, so that's 2 guys I think. McDaniels, when he was in Denver, one of the first things he did was trade away Tony Scheffler, so I don't think he's much of a double tight end guy.
No, and I guess I should have just kind of rephrased that and said that Funches could be a guy that could play in the slot and control the middle of the field as well. Big body, good hands.
Yeah. Let's wrap up the Pats. Who do you think they take with the 32nd pick?
I think they probably don't go offense unless a guy like Gurley falls to them. But to be honest, I think they're trading out of the pick. But if you held a gun to my head and asked who they were going to pick, probably would lean towards probably. Man, this is you're killing me here. Probably leaning towards Eddie Goldman.
That's the name. That's the exact name that I put down. I felt like I don't think he go. I think he's that late first, early second. I think he'll be there. I think he fits their scheme. I agree with you. I don't think they go offense unless Gurley falls, which it doesn't look like it's going to be anymore. It seems like it fits so well. But yeah, like you said, they'll trade out of it. They won't pick there. I don't think. All right, that wraps up the Pats. And our team looks. When we do this again the next time, we'll look at the Tennessee Titans and probably I think we'll maybe look at the Saints. Not the Saints, but the Seahawks. We'll talk about the Saints more when we're at pick 14. But I still want to kind of touch in on the Seahawks just because they're a good team in that. Let's look at we both break down and do scouting reports for the website. Let's kind of look at a few of the players maybe that we've watched recently. Maybe a guy that we really were impressed with. Maybe a person we're kind of down on. Who have you been watching lately?
I've been watching. I've been trying to catch up on the defensive linemen and the cornerbacks to an extent. And for me, I really I've never bought into this hype with Danny Shelton, and the more I watch him, the more I still question it. To me, he's a Dan Williams type. He probably warrants a pick in the 25 to 30 range, maybe 20 to 25 range. But to me, I just don't see this top 10, top 15 prospect. His sack numbers were a bit inflated with a couple good games this season. He, even against Oregon, he had Marcus Mariota run right into his arms for a sack. It was, he really had some, he really had the benefit of having some talent around him and it really forced the sacks towards him. I don't think he's a good pass rusher. He's a very good run stopper, but he tails off towards the end of games in his production and his performance, regardless of what his snap numbers indicate from the season.
Yeah, I know our Nolan Vasan, our NFL Draft Geek creator and founder, is a big Shelton fan. I like him. I don't want people to think I don't like him. I think he's a phenomenal run defender. I think he's an elite nose tackle. I just don't think you take a nose tackle in the first round. I think he's an exception because he's an elite one. I think, I'd be comfortable taking him in the 20s. I know I've mocked him a lot to Cleveland at 19. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to Cleveland at 12. I don't see it, but it wouldn't shock me, and I would even be okay with that just because of how bad their run defense is and how good he is. He got most of his sacks early in the season when they played an FCS school and a couple not very good schools.
Hawaii too, right?
Yeah, Hawaii. I think he had 3 out of his 8 sacks in that game. So I think those were kind of inflated because of the poor competition. And I think he's a guy that's going to come in, play first and second down. He played a lot of snaps, and that's awesome. But he's not a pass rusher, so there's no sense having him in there all 3 downs.
No.
Um, I,
And I probably should say it's not that I don't dislike him, but I never saw the top 10, top 5, and even top 15 hype that he was getting. Just because I don't think you draft the nose tackle that high.
yeah. A player that I was really impressed with was Trey Flowers from Arkansas. I know going into I watched some of his 2013 tape this summer, and I was really down on him. And I finally got a chance to watch him this year, and I was really impressed with him. I really liked his initial speed off the ball. Uh, he's got those long arms. I think he has 34.5-inch arms, which is pretty long. Good run defender. I mean, he can set the edge. He's very disruptive. I read an article on Sports Illustrated's Monday Morning Quarterback. Robert Klemko wrote it, talking about Atlanta's speed rushers, and one thing that Dan Quinn really liked out of his base defensive end, his 5 technique, was that initial speed off the ball. Flowers reminded me a lot of a guy like Michael Bennett of the Seahawks, where he not a dynamic outside pass rusher, but he could play defensive end on the early downs and then move inside to like a 3 technique and rush on sub packages. I don't know if he goes in the top 40, top 50 to Atlanta's 2nd-round pick, but man, I think he'd be a great fit in their defense.
Yeah, and I'd like to chime in on that, but I need to get to watching some Trey Flowers, particularly after hearing you've been so high on him.
Yeah. The guy that I was quite down on, speaking of Michael Bennett, but this is the one from Ohio State, the defensive tackle. I know he's getting some late 1st-round buzz. I know you're the national analyst. I even heard it today. I just don't see it. He's got a quick first step, but he's almost out of control, and he's got his head down. He ends up falling down a lot. Is off balance, can't make plays. I didn't like him against the run. I think I dropped him. I dropped him to a 3rd-round player, and I thought he was a guy that's going to be like a sub-package inside pass rusher. We talked about Henry Melton for the Bucs. I looked at Bennett as a guy like that. Maybe he can develop into a starter eventually, but I don't see the 1st-round talent.
No, I don't at all. I'm completely I completely agree with you. He he plays out of control. He gets engulfed by bigger blockers. I watched Alabama and Oregon, or his games against Alabama and Oregon, and he was, other than one play he made against Alabama where the offensive guard gave up, he didn't make any plays. I think he really benefited from having that amount of talent on his defensive line surrounding him. I think Adolphus Washington was a better prospect, but he didn't impress me at all. And the game against Wisconsin, he looked good, but those big, heavy-footed offensive linemen, they're not going to be able to do much against him. So I think he's probably about a 3rd-round grade for myself as well.
Sounds good. Let's wrap this up. I got a couple just general, maybe 1st-round thoughts. I know that's the kind of what everyone looks for when they think about the draft. A couple names and teams I kind of was thinking. I know I didn't share these with you ahead of time, so this is going to be pure reaction for you. So I'm excited to see and hear what you have to say. Looking at the Cowboys, what do you think of Eric Kendricks to the Cowboys? I look at him. I really liked him from what I thought. I have him as a top 25 overall ranking. I look at the Cowboys. Rob Marinelli's that 4-3 cover 2. I know they don't play too much cover 2, but athletic, instinctive middle linebacker. They lost Bruce Carter. Sean Lee's always hurt. They don't have Rolando McClain signed yet. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure if they would necessarily go 1st-round linebacker. Kendricks is quite the player from top to bottom, and probably the top inside linebacker in this class. But I can't see the Cowboys going with him first round. You know, they got holes at running back, their defensive tackle, is cornerback, safety. I think they have quite a few holes to fill, and I'm not sure if they really feel comfortable with bringing a inside linebacker first round. Also, they signed what's his name, Nate Gonchar or something, from the Chargers. Supposedly he's supposed to be their backup guy in hopes that they can retain Rolando McClain, but McClain's facing a drug suspension.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of looking at it. Sounds like they could miss out on the top two running backs now, and so I was thinking, well, gosh, if they can't get Gordon or Gurley, they're not going to take. I don't think they take Jay Ajayi or Abdullah there. So yeah, just kind of a thought. I think it popped into my head earlier today. Last one I had deals with Cleveland. You've heard Ray Farmer talk about how he doesn't like wide receivers in the first round. They don't touch the ball enough. They added Dwayne Bowe and Brian Hartline, who aren't world beaters, but give them a little bit more depth. But then you hear at the owners' meetings, he talked about adding a wide receiver in the first round. So, it's one of those, what do you believe? If they do take a wide receiver, do you think it's a complete smokescreen? Or I like Rashad Perryman or Jalen Strong as that possibility, maybe at 19.
Well, both those guys, I'm a little bit, I'm not quite as high on as, I'm not, in the 19 range, with them, but I think this year with the particularly deep wide receiver class, I can see the Browns passing on one in the first round again. I know they desperately need a receiver. They probably need multiple in this year's class, but I really could see them passing yet again. Now, if this was a receiver class where there were probably only 3 guys that could come in and contribute from day one, I could see them going first round wide receiver. But they do have holes across the board. They probably feel content with Brian Hartline and Dwayne Bowe. I certainly wouldn't, but you never know with that organization. I mean, sorry, they're a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it. You look at Manziel, who you think is their, still their future. He thrived at A&M with Mike Evans just throwing him up the ball. Even McCown, when he had his success, the limited amount of success he's had in his career in Chicago, he had Jeffrey and Marshall. And I look at Perryman and Strong are both guys who are contested catchers. They can leap, they can go up and get the ball. I finally got the chance to watch Perryman, and I liked him. I have him as a late first, early second round grade, or according to my rankings. I just think I don't think there's a lot of surefire first round talent in this draft. I think the depth of this draft is going to be in that second round talent. So, I think it's going to be real fluid. So I could see, maybe they move up. Maybe they're able to trade back a little bit with the team, moving up if someone falls.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I guess that kind of, I guess that does it for our first episode. It was fun. It kind of can't believe we've talked for 50 minutes already. Hopefully people enjoy it. We can get started on a second episode soon. Looking at a couple more teams, a couple more, scenarios. I like this, just these random thoughts that pop into my head, and getting your unfiltered opinion on them.
Definitely, yeah. This has been fun. I certainly don't get to sit down and talk about the draft for nearly an hour every day, so it's always a pleasure to do that.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there, and I'll get this cut up and sent out, and hopefully people like it. And you could always let us know once it gets posted. I know I'll tweet it out, and I'm at on Twitter at BA Johannes, BAJOHANS. And Kyle, you are at
That's a good question. It's actually Kyle, Kyle, Howe, Howe, 1, just the number.
All right. Well, until next time, we'll see you later.
All right, Brian, take care.